right, so today we're talking about student retention. So, as a music teacher, your income depends on how many students you have at any given time. So that's one sucky part about this job, is that, 3 of them can quit in a week or however many, and you never know when that's going to happen. Sometimes they give you a heads up, sometimes they don't. I've had students that have been students for a year and a half tell me that the last day that, like at the end of the lesson, oh, this is my last lesson, by the way, and never see them again. So you don't have any control over that, but if you get even 3 months out of one student, that's pretty good considering this is a hobby thing for most people. But I'm going to give you some tips on how you can keep them as occupied and as happy for as long as humanly possible. So, and to keep in mind, you don't have any control over certain factors. Like if they don't have enough money to pay for lessons after a while, that's the first thing usually to go because it's not a necessity. It's almost never anything to do with the teacher themselves. So the first thing you want to do to keep your student retention at its optimum level is you want to make your students happy. So give them what they want. I have this easy because I have perfect pitch. So I can hear a song just like that for the very first time, and instantly I can hear the notes. I know where the fret positions are. I can teach them the song, start tabbing it out without even playing the thing. It freaks me out as easy as it is for me, but it's a thing. I know most of you probably watching are not going to have that ability because perfect pitch is 1 in 10,000 people. So you're not going to probably be able to do that. But what you can do, unless you do have that ability, then by all means, good for you. You're probably shaking your fist at me. I know my best friend is because he hates that I have it. But it is what it is. But anyway, find out what the student likes. Sometimes they don't know. It's a thing with students, young kids especially. They don't digest music. They don't have to pay for music. They don't have to go to a record store. A lot of times they can't tell you the names of the artists or even the names of the songs that they like. So just help them figure out what they like. Write down suggestions. Tell them to go on YouTube, make a playlist, suggest certain books. But if they do have a thing that they like, AC/DC is popular, any kind of rock band, Guns N' Roses, Van Halen, stuff that's tried and true, Black Sabbath, Led Zeppelin, the standouts, the standards, those are songs that people are always going to want to learn. But if it's something really specific, like some kids I have, they just bring me video game music. So they want to learn that. Or they want to learn a film theme, like teaching the Indiana Jones theme on guitar is really fun. It's a little trickier for some students, but just the fact that they're into it is the main thing you want to touch on. It doesn't have to be something that they can execute flawlessly. You don't want to teach them improper technique, but another whole lesson topic for this channel is going to be don't obsess over your students not practicing, because most of them don't. Just accept that because it's a thing. They will practice, they will work on it, but you're going to get more of them who don't than the other ones because, again, most people don't take this real seriously. It has nothing to do with you. You're doing your job just fine. They're too busy, et cetera, et cetera. So the second thing, after giving them whatever they want, this is actually like 1B, is that make that really specific. Like sometimes they'll want to learn how to read music, which is rare, but it does happen. Sometimes they want to learn rock songs. Sometimes it's something different every week. But whatever inspires or keeps them interested is what you want to do. And make sure with kids, especially, that they're having fun. If they're bored, they're not going to stick around. So if it gets to where it's kind of mundane, change it up a little bit. You won't know what that is immediately because it's a case-by-case basis. Every student's going to be a little bit different. But once you hit on something they like for instance, I was using the Guitar Center book one time with a kid, and he didn't start really enjoying himself until I started teaching him Mario Brothers themes from the Nintendo game. And once we hit on that, they bought him a Mario transcription book. And I was amazed at how complex that music actually is once I saw it all written out. But as far as the Bowser theme at the end of the very first Mario Brothers game, and Luigi's Mansion and a bunch of others, that was what got that kid interested. And he was a student for close to 2 years, I think. So that was a worthwhile thing for me to do. The second thing you need to be aware of is that you want the parents of the student to know that it's more about what the student wants to learn versus what the parent wants them to learn. because the kid is the student. Now, you have to walk a somewhat of a fine line there, because the parent is the one paying. Always keep that in mind, because if the parent thinks their money is not going where it needs to go, or it's not benefiting them to spend it, then they're not going to keep the kid there. But you're the expert. Always, always do not back off of, you are the musical expert. You know what the student's into, because that's what they're paying you for. Don't let them try to tell you how to do your job as a teacher. That's a bunch of shit. Don't accept that. Don't be a dick about it. Stand your ground, though. You don't have to get bent out of shape. You said, look, this is what he likes, and I know he's not going to be interested if I don't teach him this, because, you know, no young kid who's into rock bands wants to learn how to read music. It's boring, and it's going to piss them off and make them uninterested, and you're going to lose a student over it. So, but if the student wants them to learn to read, you got to, like, this is a good example. You've got to tell them, and this is just the truth, most people, especially rock players, but a lot of contemporary musicians, period, we never learn how to read on guitar. It's about finger positions and finger shapes and learning to recognize which position you end up at and picking directions and all the mechanics that go into playing guitar, as well as getting used to how it feels and the tones and all the things you can make it sound like. And those are things that are more important than learning to read. And it's kind of a fine line, because people get in their heads that you can't play music if you don't know theory, if you don't know this, that, and the other, and that's not true. Theory can only help you. I mean, it's made my playing and my musicianship 10 times what it ever used to be, but it's not something that most people request. I've got a handful of students who are really into it, but it's not something that the average kid is going to be really thrilled about. Maybe later on if they get serious about it and they've been playing for a couple of years. The next thing you want to be sure about is that you make it, as I mentioned before in a previous clip, that you might want to make it as simple as possible for them. They're not going to practice most of the time, and kids especially have a hard time fretting the strings, getting the strings to fret where the notes don't buzz, especially with chords, more than one or two fingers. So you can break it down to where you don't have to play, let me put this like the easiest way I can. You don't want to give them inaccurate ways to play songs, but this is about their learning process, so you don't have to teach them exactly the way the song is played. You just want it to be something that encourages them, that they can play, that sounds good, that keeps them motivated, keeps them wanting to play. Once they get better, they get a little more serious about it, then you can break it down and say, you know, you need to play it this way, this is the only way to play it, etc. But if you can get it to where the basic idea is there and it sounds like the song that they want to learn to them, that's going to keep them motivated, it's going to keep them wanting to play. And that's what you want. You're not lying to them, you're not doing them any kind of disservice, and you're keeping them paying you, which is what keeps you employed as a music teacher. So that's the bottom line there. And they're going to enjoy it more, because it's as sad as it is. I mean, as an accomplished player, it kind of drives me nuts sometimes, but a lot of people don't have the mentality that a lot of us do when we first started playing this thing. We want to get as good as we can. They don't put that much dedication into it. Doesn't mean they don't care. It's just a hobby thing for them that enriches their life for a week or an hour at a time or half an hour at a time every week. And there's nothing wrong with that, but you just have to understand and make peace with that, because if you don't, it'll drive you crazy. There's some days the students not practicing and not taking your advice will get to you. Trust me, it does me still sometimes, but you know, it's not really worth getting worked up over, because it has nothing to do with you. So also just keep that in mind. It doesn't mean you're a bad teacher. It's just the way most people view the thing. It's not something they get really super geeked out about, but they're always appreciative, and you're going to be able to keep your students longer that way. So to recap, we've got give them what they want, whether it's rock, pop, blues, film music. There's a book for everything now. So if you don't have the perfect pitch thing like I do, which you probably don't, just for fact, then you know you can order books on Amazon. You've got YouTube. There's tutorials. There are tab sites. Although I have to say, stay the hell away from ultimateguitar.com. There's nothing ultimate about that site, except for the ultimate amount of suck that precedes whoever uploads the tabs to that site. They don't know what the hell they're doing. I've seen God knows how many shit tabs from that site, and they don't. It's just the way they write them out on the thing. They're hard to interpret anyway. They let any Joe Blow who thinks they know what the tab is upload stuff. They don't have a fucking clue what they're doing. Okay, but so bottom line, there's resources. There's plenty of them. Use them. Give them what they want, no matter what it is, and be encouraging. So make it simple for them, make it fun, and communicate to the parents, who's usually the people paying, unless it's an adult, that they know a lot more about what they want than the kids do most of the time. But just communicate to the parent as thoroughly and as professionally as you can that the student is the one learning, not them. So if they're insisting that the student learn to do something they don't want, that's going to unmotivate the student, and then they're not going to take lessons anymore. And it's not something that's happened to me a whole lot, but it is something I occasionally do have to do. But as I stated before, you don't have to get defensive about it, but just maintain that you're the professional and you know what's best for the student, because they're the ones paying you to do that job. So those are the basics on student retention. Thanks for tuning in. Please hit the subscribe button, and we will see you for the next lesson. Rock on.